Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Mining Conversation with MsTedy. And remember that this podcast is proudly sponsored by Menor. So this episode, we are going to be focusing on the mining tour that we had with our Federation for Sustainable Environment. And we were invited by Mariette Liefferink when she came to do an interview last year. The interview, if you remember, we spoke a lot about the damages that are caused by the mines that are not properly closed, and also we spoke about the Zama problems that we have, or illegal mining that we have. So that's when she then invited us to the tour. So we finally went to the tour and we learned so much. But before we get to the tour, I first also would like to thank my team, which is Sorry, I won't start with you, but let me start with Gamu Malangabi, who is the content producer. There's also Nkele Khatebe, my makeup artist. And then added to the team, and he's sitting right here, is Tsepo Munyamani, who is the producer and also now my co-host. And he also attended the tour, was part of the tour, and he will also share what he learned at the tour. So, Tsepo, how are you? How are you feeling?
No, all good, Teddy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I've always wanted to be part of such a podcast, where we have mining conversations, share insights, with like-minded people, industry experts and leaders. And yeah, I look forward, to being part of the team, of course. And like I said, having mining conversations with with industry leaders and experts. So thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. So let's just get into the tour. So we went to three mine sites, right? So we first went to Pan African Resources. We also went to Sibanye Stillwater, and as well as Goldfield South Deep Mine.
Yes.
And then with me, what I learned is that we saw the first place that we went to, or the first location that we went to, it was an area where it showed what mine can do to an environment, or how it can affect an environment. So with that, I then learned the importance of mining, considering the environment where they're mining, and making sure whatever that they do, they consider the environment and take necessary measures to ensure that the mining does not affect the environment badly. And then we also noticed or went to a location where the mine was not properly closed off. And then that place then was then prone to illegal miners.
Yes.
We did see a bit of holes that then indicated that this way the legal miners are possibly mining. And then it also then, when we were walking around, we could smell, there was a funny smell.
Yes.
That could pose as a danger if there's wind and stuff like that, or if there are people who are residing within that area.
Yes.
And then also Mariette did mention, Guti, there are actually people who are having activities such as quad biking along those areas, and then they then take that soil which has radioactive activities,
Yes.
and then they bring it maybe home or to their yards and stuff like that, and then end up, and that can also impact on their health.
Yes.
Because such radioactivities contributes to, can cause you cancer, can contribute to lung infections, and. So that was me learning about that. And then we also went to a mine that adheres to environment, policies. We saw how they clean their water.
Yes.
We saw how they did the tailing thing. So it was there was so much to learn.
Of course, yes.
And in my head, I just wish that every mine can then consider the environment. And then, because I'm thinking by now, every mine knows how mines or people who are within the mining community get affected, especially with their health. And so it is very important that mines consider the environment so that people who are within the community do not get sick. And then I also remember Mariette saying something about there was informal settlement that was not far from that mine that was not closed
Sibanye
off.
Stillwater, yes.
And then, I don't know, they had to then fight to get those people off because they were getting sick and stuff like that. So there's so many things that we learned on that tour. And if you can, please contact the Federation for Sustainable Environment. Find out when their next tour is, and believe you me, you're going to learn so much, and you are going to be interested in wanting to know what's happening or how the mining industry is actually impacting the environment,
And the
because you might
community.
even think Uguti, it does not affect you,
Yeah.
but you might be affected because with developments that are happening, housing developments, and we also saw a development that is not far from the mining industry or
Yes.
a mine, and it's not even supposed to be there, but it was built there, and then there's issues already going on with that development.
Yes.
So it's such information that will then help you to even make a wise decision when you are looking for a home, because you would know, Guti, you should not be looking for a home or be finding or residing within in an area where the place is not far from the mine, because that can actually affect your health. So that's me. That's what I learned. I don't know if you want to add
No,
something to that.
and just, on that note, I
Yeah.
think we should give credit to, experts such as Mariette Liefferink, who's also the environmental justice
Yeah.
activist, who's for the environment, for sustainability, and so on and so forth. And I think, just going back to the Sibanye Stillwater story, actually the Pan-African resources. When we visited the when we visited the Vonnerfontein Dam,
Yeah.
which is on the West Rand in Johannesburg. This is an area in which it's home to some of the world's largest gold mining companies, such as your Anglo Golds, Harmony Gold, just to name a few. And there we were taught that the dam itself, is impacted by acid mine runoff and waterborne radioactive materials, which include uranium from gold mining activities. And interestingly, the toxic water itself, which is a pH level 2, this means it's unsafe for human consumption. It's linked to the Val water system, which contributes some 65%, of the country's economy, and supplies 65% of its people. So just going back to uranium itself as a mineral, just being exposed to it, whether through indigestion or inhaling it, it can lead to health effects, as you've mentioned, cancer, lung issues, and so on and so forth, due to its both toxicity and radioactivity, primarily impacting obviously kidneys and lungs and so on and so forth. And and I think the one thing that we need to mention is that the mine itself was acquired by Pan-African Resources from
An
Australian company
that left it and closed.
Yes, this was Mintels.
They up and left.
Yeah, so it was acquired back in 2003 as part of its efforts to, it was acquired in 2003 as part of its tailings retreatment projects, which aims to remine old gold tailings dams on the west end of Johannesburg. So I must say it was an interesting tour, and just going forward also to the tailings dam issues.
Yeah, so Tapo, what you learned is very interesting, and for me as well, just to add, and before we take away, because listeners or our viewers need to actually watch the tour for themselves. So in closing, I just want to say that I got excited because I finally got to see, what do you call it? A tailing
storage facility, TSF, yeah.
That was interesting for me
Yes.
because I think I first learned about tailing when I attended the mining in Daba, and everyone just was on about tailing, and I wondered what this tailing is, you know?
Yeah.
And then I finally got to see it, and that was so interesting for me.
Yeah.
So the tour was actually an eye-opener. I learned so much, and going forward as well, with the content that we're going to be covering, you know, it's going to be also impacted by what we learned.
Yes.
And the information that Mariette shared when we were going. And just also to add to the pregnant women who are eating clay. That clay is dangerous, and now I know why the clay is dangerous.
Yeah.
Because it contains the radioactive activities. Ne?
Yeah,
That's how you put it.
radioactive
Particles or something like that.
particles, yes.
So that is dangerous for you and the child. So next time you think of buying that clay, just know it's from the mine that was not sealed off properly, and it contains radioactive particles that can cause you or the child cancer.
And just to add on that, going back to the residential area that you've mentioned earlier, obviously in line with the tailings storage facility, where the clay itself, it's been taken and used to make bricks, to manufacture bricks.
Yeah, she did mention that.
Yes. And these bricks are being sold to people to build houses. And obviously that has lasting health implications for us as human beings, and that is something to take note of.
You might not be in mining, but mining does affect you one way or the other.
Yes.
You might not be residing within a mining community, but at some point you might be affected by the mining industry or how the mining industry operates and.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wednesday, March 12, 2025, a visit to the mining areas in Krugersdorp, Gauteng, South Africa. Witwatersrand Basin showed the enduring legacy of South Africa's 1886 gold rush on the environment. From Lancaster Dam, Main Reef, Sibanye Stillwater, and Goldfields. The investigation covered how historical mining practices have been combined with legislative changes and present ecological issues. Although water extraction and treatment efforts at Site 1 are aimed at reducing acid mine drainage, a high environmental liability totaling 460 million rand awaits through past mismanagement.
So, during the century of gold mining activities, gold mining commenced in 1886 within the goldfields of South Africa, which is within the Witwatersrand. It resulted in the creation of the largest gold and uranium mining basin in the world. This mining basin consists of different compartments. These compartments are linked, but the different basins within the Witwatersrand mining basin is not linked. We have basins such as the Far Western Basin, the Western Basin, the Klerksdorp, Orkney, Stilfontein, Hartbeesfontein Basin, the Free State Goldfields, the Eastern Basin, and the Central Basins. Three of these basins currently are extracting water from underground and treating the water by means of lime dosing. This water is classified as acid mine influenced water. So during the more than a century of mining companies, 120 of these mining companies extracted 43,500 tons of gold, that is in 1 century, and between 1950 1905, it extracted 73,000 tons of uranium. That resulted in 6 billion tons tailings or waste. The gold mining Industry contributes 47% of all mining waste. Mining waste is classified by the European Environmental Bureau and the United States Environmental Protection Agency as the second greatest environmental risk next to global warming because of the profound, often irreversible impacts on ecosystems. It also resulted in uraniferous tailings. Our gold ore, besides co-occurring with barytic material, which results in acid mine drainage, also co-occurs with uranium. As a result, the tailing storage facilities contain 600,000 tons of uranium. Uranium is radioactive and chemically toxic. Uranium's half-life is millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. So during its half-life, it decays into daughter products or decay products such as radon, radium-222. So the risks of uranium, it's low in radioactivity, but its daughter products, its progeny is high in radioactivity. So the risks of radioactivity will remain for geological ages, not just biological ages. Currently, mining companies, to prolong the life of mine, are remining these historic tailing storage facilities to recover the residual gold. The objective is not to recover uranium. So when the residue after the reclamation operations is deposited, the residue still contains uranium and other metals. At the moment, you are standing within the headwaters of the Wonderfonteinspruit. The Wonderfonteinspruit flows south towards the Vaal River system, which supplies 65% of our water to the economy and 45% to the population. It is one of our main river systems. With regards to the Wonderfonteinspruit, the English term for Wonderfonteinspruit is miraculous fountain stream because it was considered one of the 7 wonders of South Africa prior to mining. Currently, the sediment, the soil in the Wonderfonteinspruit contains elevated levels of cadmium, cobalt, copper, zinc, the main contaminants being cadmium and uranium. These metals are adsorbed because it's heavy metals in the sediment, but under plausible conditions, these metals can be mobilized and solubilized, such as acid rain, acid mine drainage, turbulence caused by cattle disturbing the sediment, the drying out of the sediment, and a sudden influx of water. It was found by one of the master students at Northwest University, David Hamann, that the cattle that graze and water within the Wonderfonteinspruit, that the metals within their spleen, kidneys, liver, tissue, bones and hair are elevated in comparison with the control group, with the uranium levels 4,350 times higher than the control group. Furthermore, it was found that the riverine birds that graze or feed within the wetland systems of the Witwatersrand goldfields, that the eggs contain elevated levels of metals, including gold. There was a report done by Professor Henk Bouwman of Northwest University, and the report was titled "The Heron That Laid the Golden Egg." The reason for that is the eggs also contain gold besides other metals. So I think that would demonstrate that there is a pathway, a food pathway for these metals. Furthermore, it was found by the National Nuclear Regulator, the organ of state that has been mandated to protect the public and property against nuclear damage, that your principal radioactive pathway is the inhalation and the ingestion of contaminated dust from tailing storage facilities and the deposition of the dust on crops. There are densely populated communities adjacent to mine sites and tailing storage facilities. It was estimated that there are 380 radioactive mine residue areas and approximately 400,000 people are living on these radioactive mine residue areas. The National Nuclear Regulator historically did not regulate his radioactive mine resulted in these mine residue areas being unregulated. Where we are standing now, even the road over here, which was built on unremediated footprint of a tailing storage facility, also shows elevated levels of radioactivity. I just want to assure you that your exposure today will be to very low level radiation and it will be short-term exposure. Furthermore, as I've mentioned, your principal radioactive pathway is the inhalation and the ingestion of contaminated dust. This is not a windy day today, so there is no dust fallout. The dust, because it contains uranium, can result, of course, in both chemical toxicity risk and radioactivity risk. Uranium has three rays, that is the beta, alpha and also gamma rays. The rays, usually your clothing or the skin can protect you from these rays. However, if the dust is ingested or inhaled, the alpha rays within uranium continues to exert radioactivity within the body. With regards to the chemical toxicity of uranium, it can result in nephrotoxicity, that is kidney disease or kidney failure. The radioactivity or the radiotoxicity can result in endocrine disrupting compounds because it mimics estrogen. It can result in cancers and transgenerational impacts.
At Site 2, the chaos of illegal mining exposed soil is contaminated by the cyanide and mercury eucalyptus spreads amongst poorly rehabilitated land.
Over here, can you see? It's partially filled with water. We have often seen that children come to swim, and that often in these pits that have been filled with water, the water often is acidic and children drown in this water. In terms of Government Notice 704, which is part of the National Water Act, all these open pits must be fenced with warning signs in prominent places. We often see that this does not happen. I just want to also clarify that Pan-African Resources has taken over the liabilities of Mintails. I've not seen rehabilitation plans being implemented, but that is their objective. I also just want to mention that that Pan-African Resources had also acquired the 460 million rand liability from Mintails. So that we consider to be good practice. You can see also in the background the poorly managed tailing storage facilities. As a result of liquidation or abandonment of mine sites, we have often seen a proliferation of illegal miners, and in fact on top of that dump we have seen villages being established by illegal miners. So when a mining company then acquires the mining right of a liquidated mining company, then often there is also security, as we've seen with the armed security that are accompanying us today. We can now walk up to there. I just want to ask you to please do not go to the edge. You will see a massive open pit. The road over here, this road that has been constructed there, is referred to as Main Reef Road. The reason for that is that was where the gold reef was historically. So all these open pits had been constructed on this reef, this gold reef. When Mintails constructed the open pits, as I've mentioned, it was without a mining right or environmental authorization, and currently these pits are not fenced off with warning signs, and it also has resulted in illegal miners mining some of the slopes of these pits. So we will walk to there, but please again, don't go close to the edge, all right?
Sibanye-Stillwater's tailing management was on show at Site 3, where a closed-loop water system and climate adaptation measures were showcased, which had been hampered by lightning and flooding, seemingly exacerbated by climate change similar to post-apartheid pumping failures. The Goldfields Site 4, located in the far West Rand Goldfields, rebuffed rehabilitation potential as native vegetation took hold and made a good claim, but it was dangerously close to informal settlement and radioactive residue. The concept of polluter pays has been unevenly applied in the administration of these sites, as they are governed by the 1998 National Environmental Management Act and the Minerals and Petroleum Resources Development Act. Moreover, little is being done to rectify this complex socio-ecological challenge, which disproportionately impacts marginalized communities and more so through environmental burdens, dust, water pollution, and habitat loss, as the latter with equally stringent closure protocols and sustainable land use strategies.
All right, so that was the mining tour, and we're hosted by the Federation for Sustainable Environment. So thank you so much to Mariette Liefferink for sharing all that information with us. And also would like to thank Mina again,
Yes.
who is our sponsor, who has made this podcast
Possible.
possible. And also thank my team again, Kamu Malangabi, Nkele Khatebe, and the co-host. Your name, please? Tsepo Munyamani. With that being said, thank you so much. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.